In the morning talk with you, I would like to develop the exploration a little bit further and just go over the initial meditation instructions in a while. But prior to that, I would like to touch upon what I would consider 5 rather important areas which are made reference to with much regularity. And what I've got in mind here, if I can remember the 5, is busyness, 1, stress, 2, anxiety, 3, trauma, 4, and addiction, specifically mobile phones and social media, 5. So if I forget any of them, kindly let me know, because I'll be asking. All right. First, with the busyness. All of these 5 are common enough in society, in daily life. Each one of those really needs to be addressed seriously and attentively to liberate heart and mind from the problematic aspects which are with all the 5 I just referred to. So I'd like to address just one at a time. It will, I hope, be some opportunity while here for mindfulness, meditating and reflecting upon. And some of these situations I regard it as rather important for a vitally fresh and new way of looking at these things, as much as fresh and new might be. To take busyness as an example. It's very easy in the reference to oneself for the mindset to draw the view and opinion, I am very busy. Even the language I am is conceited, then to add another word to it doubles the conceit. And with busyness, it's a common problem, it's pathological, it's repetitive, and in the movement of this busyness, it generally shows itself in 3 primary areas, fairly obvious. One is thought, the mind. Mind is busy, dancing and moving up and down problematically between past, present and future. That's due to a push, unresolved matters, placing pressure on the mental components, feelings as well, of course, and it generates the busyness. The second aspect of busyness is with speech, communication, language, words, both spoken, and that can show itself sometimes in the impatience of the voice, the impatience which can arise with regard to listening to another. The business of the mind generates and feeds the will to get something finished and completed or done in the spoken world. And all of that busyness and desire and wanting things to finish it places pressure. The third area is in the doing. In the language quite often of I have so much to do. I have such a long list of things to do. That might require our presence from here to there. It might require the variety of tasks at home, caring for children, the workplace, the study environment, and much, much more. So, human being, in a world of busyness, the identification with it shows that it's manifesting in body, speech, and mind, or body, speech, written, and mind. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy, and sometimes the ego accompanies this tragedy in the conceited view, once again, oh, I am so busy. It's a way so often of feeding the notion of self-importance by being busy. But there's a cost. There's a severe cost to this. And some of the expressions of the cost to this busyness, that we do not realize how much pressure, unseen influences from the past, recent past, are gradually growing, and that generating more and more pressure. Busyness also ends up with a major disconnection and neglect of the loved ones, because one is so busy. One doesn't have time for love, support, kindness, acts of friendship, contact and communication with others because of the obsession. When the business is going along in such a way, that pressure not only is unhealthy at the mental level, but because the mind and the emotional life and the body are so intimately related, the business will gradually have an impact on the feelings about oneself. They're unpleasant and difficult to cope with. When those feelings start getting more deeply impressed, it will affect your health. It will make you sick. You'll have pains, more pains in the body, more vulnerable to a variety of ills, sicknesses, accidents, and more, because the busyness is a statement of being out of touch. All of that should say, my gosh, what the hell am I doing living a busy life? There is no virtue in it. So then we look at that, and if we see that it is a part of our life, it is quite a challenge in life to say, it's a very simple thing, what will bring more space? And what would bring more space is being less busy, and what means less busy is actually doing much less there. So that there is time for love, there is time for empathy, there is time for life, there is time for care, there is time for compassion, and we can release so much more. But some things will need to be reduced dramatically or cut out of our life, to be let go of, to make space. And it's problematic for people with kindness, but one can have a lot of kindness in this life and have no wisdom. And when there is kindness without wisdom, we will keep saying yes to this, that and the other, because we're afraid to say no. And that kind of kindness is a false kindness, because in the end of that, it wears us out and we find ourselves in difficulty. So I say, fresh approach to this is being completely honest, looking at one's life very, very clearly, and really committed to a significant, clear reduction in what we do, so that we have some remembrance that we're not human running afters and human doings and human pursuings and human getting more. We are human beings, and to renew and to reconnect with a sense of being there. And then some beautiful work, contributions, actions can come. And we can put hand on heart and say, I am not a busy person. And there's no excuse for being busy. And that will generate, in the short and the long term, much more joy, happiness and energy, and much greater support for others as much as ourselves, by just addressing this issue. The other issues are all interrelated, and one of them in all of this is the tiredness, and I'll touch upon that in a moment or two. With regard to the second area, they're not absolutely different from each other, but we look at ourselves for some clarity and some understanding, because these teachings are liberation teachings. There are radical change in the root of the being teachings, and that's the power of them if we can apply and practice them, obviously. With this area of stress, another common area, and in the area of stress, just to see the dynamics of it and what might be the predominant locations or ways that the sorry, the distress shows itself. It's really clear. All, I'll just give you 3 examples, all may be very similar, 1 or 2 may stand out for you, but to be clear with them. So one of these areas of stress is the excessive thinking. No matter what it's about, it can be good things, whatever, doesn't matter. Sometimes, as it is said, the road to hell is lined with good intentions. And certainly a truth in the one-liner there. So one might have very, very good intention, but the excess of thinking itself, the thoughts keep arising, and in the stream of those thoughts which are arising, the thought easily can arise, oh, I shouldn't be thinking so much. I should let go of these thinking. There will not be the power of the thinking telling the thinking to stop. It's a delusion. And it just continues, and oh, I should think less, blah, blah, blah. I should think less, blah, blah. Why am I thinking so much, blah, blah, blah. And it just continues because the resistance, which is what that thought is, to that is not an insight. It doesn't show clarity, it only confirms that there is a resistance to thinking, and the resistance creates the pressure, and the pressure continues the perpetuity of it. So it's quite something to really explore thinking. Quite a lot of thinking is nothing to do with the thinking. It's, I may say, it's to do with your loss of interest in life. And that change and switch over so that when a human being is really in love with life, is really conscious of life, and appreciates the most ordinary in the seeing, the hearing, the smelling, the tasting and touching, and is truly dedicated. One of the great acts of devotion that we can make in life is to be devoted to life. It's far more significant than religion. That in that devotion to life and that real interest there in people, creatures, the environment, life, the circumstances of it, it will generate such a presence that thinking will be reduced significantly. It is not through the act of will that thinking slows down. The willpower is unable to sustain the pressure of the control of the holding back of thinking. That's what willpower does. Willpower is not the answer to it. So our interest in the ordinary, the brushing of our teeth, the going to the toilet, the washing of the dishes, the eating of the food, the seeing of the creatures, the precious colours of life, the sky above, earth below, the acts of service and much more, the dedication to all of that, so that when we need to give some thought to something, it is short and it is precise and it is careful there, and we know when to begin it and when to finish it. And so with the stress level, sometimes it's the excess of thinking. The second area with regard to this is we as human beings, we engage in action, and we tend to be known by our action. People say, oh, what do you do? And quite often we report what we do, we're known by our actions. And actions are extraordinarily important. It's a vital teaching and liberation teachings. And therefore to look at our actions in life, and sometimes the actions are under the influence of 2 forces inside the being. One is the desire to get, and the other is fear of not getting. And these 2 forces inside the human being, even if it's about something good, something for the benefit of others or oneself, these 2 forces emerge in the consciousness, and the outcome of that, it creates a pressure. That pressure, 2 forces rubbing up against each other, is called stress. And sometimes, as I say, that stress starts to eat into the cells of the body and trouble ahead. So our practice and our exploration is to really look at that, and in the looking at, to really, in the very small actions, the incidental actions, the kind of irrelevant, unimportant actions where there isn't any desire to get things done and there isn't any fear of not completing them, to look at the ordinary, the mundane, the everyday, and to show the action that we engage in which doesn't have that in it. I need, as a human being, examples from personal experience of small actions without desire and fear. And therefore it is the wish to do, the inclination towards, the quiet determination towards, whatever that might be. And in that quiet, small, modest action, to get the sense of that, to develop it again and again and again through the day, until that understanding, which is the most important thing, then to say, okay, in this action, which usually I've got desire, that means pressure to get things done, fear of not getting them complete, I'm going to apply this practice of wise, skillful action, which is very modest, not very important to me or to others, and to see if I can bring that right in to the action which is problematic, which makes my life miserable, wherever I am, and it makes other people's life, because desire and fear haunt our existence. They're severe trouble for human existence, these two. And we don't need them. They're not suitable for life. We can live wisely and clearly and fearlessly as well. And the third, always interrelated, nothing is independent, of course. So in the third one, in the actions that we engage in life, the intentions and the movement, that is the action, the speech, the written word, the use of the body to do this or that. Very easy, carries with it the dependency on result. And this dependency on the result of what we do, frankly, isn't in our hands. It's another human mythology. And so often, the cooperation, that means, in terms of what we do, quite often, obviously, is on the response of the other. So if we're doing things for the attention of the other, to get the approval of the other, to get the recognition of the other, watch out. People are not always so approving. And the more wonderful a job you do, the more fault-finding you might get. Jealousy, envy, the tendency of other people to wish to be negative, to undermine. The more beautiful it is, the more vulnerable one can be. This is life. People don't, maybe plenty of people around who do appreciate beautiful and lovely gestures, but there are plenty of people around who are very willing to pull it apart. And if you forget, just pick up your morning newspaper. And the assassination, the stereotyping and the rubbishing of people who are doing some very beautiful work. So it requires a love, and that love moving into the field of commitment, into the field of the action there, but be very vigilant. Not even one's own voice will reveal the truth either. Don't imagine, oh, I just rely on what I think about it. Do not. Ooh. One's own voice can be a much harder judge than anybody else's. One can put one's experience and the consequences into the courtroom of oneself with the judge, the jury, the prosecution and the sentence. All going on in the internal life. And others may approve and they may say kind words to you, but the inner voice might be coming up, oh, they don't mean it. What do they want from me? They're just trying to impress me, or whatever. If they really knew me, they would know what rubbish I am, or whatever it might be. The internal voice, or the internal voice which is building oneself up. Voices, easily we are vulnerable. And the shift, the radical change, the root change here, love the action. know the pure-heartedness of it, if it is. Know the action as an act of sharing or offering or movement, which is there for you. And just leave the outcomes to whatever they may be, and to find a certain steadiness in what the outcomes. And if there is some feedback, positive or negative, coming to yes, however, the intentions and the actions, and to stay true to that is a tremendous thing to be able to do. With the third one here, with the anxiety, it's a challenging one. It's a word which gets frequently mentioned, like stress and busyness. It's used by people every day. And it may be, including with the other ones, it might be time to drop the word. I think these words, frankly, quite a lot, have gone past their sell-by date. And what I mean by that, the word has got corrupted. It gets corrupted through the frequency of usage. So, as an example there, in terms of the simple duality of things, there is the event. The event says, the object, I am anxious. I have a lot of anxiety. There we heard in the inquiry yesterday evening with Samantha. Common enough, I have a lot of anxiety. I wake up with anxiety. Sometimes anxiety impacts and influences on me in a whole variety of ways. So we keep using the same word, anxiety, anxiety, anxiety. And we might speak about that experience using that word. The word itself, there is in the duality, there is the describer. The describer says, this is anxiety. This is the description of it. As if the word, this anxiety or my anxiety, is somehow detached, beyond, and an independent statement which is true and authentic about the event. It ain't. How could it be? Coming out of the same mind, not coming out of space, it's coming out of the same mind. And the same mind is carrying in the describer the past history through the frequency of use. The language anxiety is tainted. It's tainted with all the previous impressions. So when it's looking at the experience, which is called anxiety, the word is being used, I am anxious, and the regularity of the use of that word lands on every little bit of uncomfortable feeling and sensation that's going on in the body, and it's called anxiety. It's a crude, stereotype generalization of experience, because it just gets used every time there's some thoughts which are arising which are too much, and some sensations in the body which are too much. Oh, it's anxiety, anxiety. How can a human being be liberated in the belief system, I am anxious? It shows a disconnect. It shows that we're not really close to the event, because we have decided this is it. And we can't tolerate letting go of the identity called I am anxious, or I am busy, or I am stressed. Because we're so used to the describer in their identity repeating the language. Is there any wonder we can practice 5, 10, as a good man said, 20 years, and still talking about it? It's a challenge to liberate the being there. And in relationship to that, and there's a meditation teacher talking, so I have a little experience over these last 50 years with all this. We say, we might say, at times, I'm trying to be precise here, I don't want to get into stereotyping myself with this point. We say, We, that's a bit too broad. Christopher said. It is valid and worthwhile to go to the body, to go to the breath and to the body. Yes, we give some genuine emphasis on this. Yes, as mentioned earlier, the feeling, emotional, thought, state of mind life so intimately close with the body, clearly the body easily can be affected by that. Some people, body life has a certain kind of resilience and is able to accommodate these kind of problematic states of mind, shall we say. But sometimes some people, more so than what is realized, the body is really affected by the states of mind, the streams of thought, and that varies a lot. More importantly, and the point I want to make here, is that we do say, yes, be in touch with your sensations. And here I'm using the word sensations as a word which means bodily feelings, bodily feeling tones, the variety of them. Yes, be in touch with the sensations in the body, explore them, be clear about them, work with them, relax through them, contribute to dissolving them, etc. Express equanimity towards them. And all of that will give, is the point, temporary relief. That's all it will do. It will give temporary relief. And the temporary relief will not bring about the liberation from it. Sometimes, occasionally, because there's always an exception to every guideline here, it may significantly help, and sometimes there may be a breakthrough to make allowances for that while engaged in the body. But more often than not, I would say, though we emphasize appropriately enough the mindfulness, the concentration, the meditations, the being with the body experience, looking into the difficulties of the constructions in the body, tensions, stress, discomfort, pain, and the variety of sensations which are difficult to work with. So we look at all of that, though we can contribute to chilling it out for the time being. And that helps to make some calmness and clarity in the being. But I doubt very much that a process, with all the equanimity and clarity that goes with it, will resolve the issue. It's going to take something deeper than that. It's going to take some understanding, unknown to oneself, which changes fundamentally the whole view of it, the whole view of what this experience actually is. And therefore, the making way or the keeping out of all of that is to drop any buzzword, because the description is misleading you. The description is making you think this is what it is. It is not. It is not what you think it is. It's not what you have decided. It's not what everybody has told you. The language, the repetition of the singular is the block to finding and understanding quite different there. To take an example, just keeping with the anxiety level for a moment, so-called, that in the relationship to that, it might be that you experience some anxiety. Let's say it might be in the stomach. It might be a kind of nervousness in the system or whatever. And one says, gosh, I'm feeling this anxiety yet again. But if one takes out the word for a moment there, and in the relationship to the event, without any description of it, it might be providing some opportunity to see it in a fresh way. And if one is seeing it in a fresh way, in a new way, it might trigger some insights and understanding what is contributing to this, because there cannot be anxiety or busyness or stress without causes and conditions. And anxiety, busyness and stress can't sustain itself without taking out even just one of those causes and conditions. It's completely dependent on the causes and conditions. So the looking at it, being calm and peaceful with it, helpful and beneficial as it may be, but it's only the preparation, what needs to change. And if you're not willing to change anything, then you'll have a temporary relief, and then you'll go home, and within days you'll be back, or a week or two, or a month or two, it will be back. So something has to change in the way of viewing these problematic experiences, and not only just change for the day, but in this case, change once and for all. And the invitation and the exploration for liberation, in this case from anxiety and the others, is something needs to change, not huge, but to take something out so it can't continue. In a very, very simple way. Perhaps you were a smoker there, apart from the tragic waste of good farming land and all the cancers that go along with it as well. And one day has come, you may recall, I can recall, the day one decided to stop smoking. For smoking to arise, it requires quite a few conditions. First of all, it requires the tobacco, it requires a cigarette, or the roll-up, or whatever. It also requires the matches, that requires the motivation, or the addiction, or the habit. And you can put all of that together. There is still no smoking. You can light the match, it's still no smoking. You still need cause and condition. You can light the match, you can put it to the end of the cigarette, still no smoking. Then one started. Just take one of those out, just drop the matches. Don't have a cigarette in the hand. Don't move your hand towards the cigarette. Take one condition out, the whole thing is over with. What's the condition that's going to end your busyness? What's the condition that's going to end your stress? What's the condition that's going to end your anxiety? That's what the teachings are about. In the exploration there with tiredness there, I like with the others, to be honest, I don't have much belief in the reality of tiredness. I think it's mostly it's a social fiction. It's something that we've agreed this is how it is, and we can't imagine that we might be living in cloud cuckoo land. So, to take a small example, which reminded me of this, the sweetness of sitting on the cushion at 9 o'clock yesterday evening. I can tell you, there's maybe 50–60% of you were here, and the hall this morning is looking considerably more crowded there. So what happened between 8:30 and 9 o'clock? You know, of course, some of you may have gone to challenge your fearlessness in walking in the forest at night, there, or you know, walking on water down at the swimming pool or something else. I don't know, but I have a mild suspicion, forgive me, that it might not have been those two valuable areas, and it went somewhere else. So then the thought arises, you know, after the lovely inquiry with Samantha, or in between, the thought arises, I am, the conceit has already started, and then tired. So there's a general, I wouldn't call it walking, sleepwalking, towards one's place of residence. The mind is convinced, I am tired, I'm so tired, it's been such a long day, I've really got no energy left, I must really have to go to bed, because I've got to get up at this appalling hour of 5:45. But gratefully, you know, not in a Buddhist monastery, it's 4 o'clock, or a Zen retreat where it's 3 o'clock. But here it's a holiday camp. This is Byron Bay, after all. So it's 5:45 when the day there. somebody close to you rang up Ali and said, would you please give this telephone number to this person? It's very urgent. Please ring immediately. This is urgent. Ali quickly goes to this person. Here's the telephone number. Person said, please ring immediately. Are you going to say, oh God, I'm so tired? I might not even make the first sitting, so I try and ring between 8 and 8:30. I promise before 9:30. Where did that energy come from? One didn't have a moment's energy left. And now one got so much energy there before the call, during the call, and after the call, and no sleep at night. There's so much energy. Where did it come from? What was all this reality? I am so tired. I'm just exhausted. I really can't sleep. I can't handle another minute. I don't want to hear another word. And then human beings are masters of self-deception. Masters of it we are. So in that situations like that, as an example of what I mean, is that sometimes in the looking, like to repeat, we look and we have a view and we've persuaded ourselves of the authenticity of the view. We are so kind of bizarrely attached to the view of the situation or of the experience, we carry the view around. And we only have to have a little sensation. We yawn like that, we feel a bit tired. The horizontal posture in the hall gets more and more attractive. I notice two or three of you trying to make love to the carpet, going in that direction. Look, when you're dead, you'll have plenty of time in the horizontal posture, etc. So sometimes we're kind of going in that direction there. And we're saying, look, there's another way of looking at these things altogether. Because of the habit, conditioning, the repetition of the reaction. It's not an action, it's a reaction. And it can easily happen, coming back to the tiredness for a moment. One has an impression. I am tired, 8:30 to 9 o'clock in the evening. And at the same time, this evening and the next evening, the same feeling, sensation arises, which then is interpreted, judged to be, I am tired. And in that, one kind of creeps off to the horizontal world. And we're here to catch that. We're here not to keep defining who we are in the time with the same label. That's all. And finally, is it the final one? Coming to addictions there. I've got the mobile phone as a primary one. So, like everything else, it starts off as you say, as a pleasure, as a support, useful. But the repetition of time means that gradually we lose connection with the actual world. We live in a false substitute world called social media or the mobile phone or whatever. And there is the addiction which starts to enter into that. And that begins to cut off access to people and to life there. And some people have looked at this and are looking at this more and more carefully. And in that, setting some principle or some guideline for its use. And sometimes when on the underground train, seeing the number of people who are just engrossed in their self-absorbed, self-little world around the mobile and the phone there. And quite often, it's Facebook there, it's texting, it's playing games, it's looking at pictures or whatever it might be. And there's something magnetic, it's a pull. Of course it's a pull, it's an addiction. It's an addiction waking up in the morning, and it's the first thing that one does, and much more. And it is going to take, if you wish to be a liberated human being and not an addicted human being, it's going to take quite some clarity. There's far more important things in life than that little box of information and entertainment there. So its usage is careful, its usage is reduced to maximize sense with life. It's fragmenting. I see this in the retreats over the years, in a generality for a moment there. I gave, I think it was in Israel, so the 2 retreats back to back. And the blessed thing with Israel is that they're offering the retreats fully on donation there, to the great credit. But it means that nobody has to give any deposit because there's no registration there. So roughly 85 were registered for each retreat. People are asked to confirm 2 or 3 weeks beforehand. Months they confirm 2 or 3 weeks beforehand. So we anticipated around 85 hours for assistant teachers to give the extra support, and the outcome of that was out of the, I think it was like 170 people, 110 turned up. I said, it can't go on like this. This is there with people having an idea, I'll put my name down just in case I might go. But there may be other things which I need to do, or whatever there. And when the life is so fragmented with all these so-called choices and things to do, and here and there, commitments and connections and the deep things of life get lost and forgotten. And that's a huge problem. Huge problem. Sometimes when I have a coffee with somebody and their mobile phone goes on and they pick up the mobile phone and answer it, my immediate response is, I bring a book out of my bag and I start reading it. As soon as I answer the phone, I get the point. I don't have to say anything. So sometimes in that, if we're going to make care and love and connection for each other, as a theme, as I mentioned earlier, things have to get less in life to make access for something more important. And it's a real challenge, and I do feel concerned from what one reads about the impact of all of this computer and all these systems on our brain and our heart and our being. I'm not sure if human beings are made for such intensity, which is affecting us and affecting our children and so forth. So we've plenty of issues to explore here. Busyness, remember them now. Stress, anxiety, thank you, trauma, nearly there, and addictions, mobile phone addictions I had in mind. And just finally with the world of trauma there. Interesting how this word, like a few other words, it's kind of entered into the language with immense frequency in the last few weeks or months there. And sometimes it's used in a light-hearted way, as fun way. So yesterday morning, my darling daughter telephoned. She said, "Dad, something I've got to tell you." I put it on loudspeaker so that they could listen. So she went to church and went to school because she thought that Josiah, it's a combination of Hebrew and Jamaican name, Josiah, Joseph, was in some kind of service there because he's in the first year. So my daughter went, she got into the church hall there, and she couldn't see him anywhere, so she thought I would stay, but there were lots of other parents there. And then she was laughing, and she said, there were all seem to know these prayers which I never even heard of, knew nothing about. Our Father who art in heaven, and the one to Mary, I can't remember how that starts. Hail Mary, full of grace. And some of you have had the terrors of the Catholic upbringing will know exactly what I'm referring to. And so she's looking around, she had no idea what they were talking about. They thought, well, I won't leave. And the head teacher spotted her and just gave a nod. And then at the end of it, he said, oh, Lashona, he said, really touched her, even though your son's not here this morning because it's not for the first year students, that you've made the effort to come and to listen to a church service and be part of this Catholic school, etc. She said, well, I was thinking about it, I've got a lot of work to do, etc. And I spoke to my grandson for a moment, 4 years of age. I had to smile, etc. I mentioned it to him. Samantha's giving the instruction just so I'm going to go out to see if I can see a snake, because it's the only proof with the kids that I've been to Australia. And so I'm out hunting, and I go down to the pond down there. You've been down the hill, and it's damp and track, and sometimes one sees one of those. And then he said to me, Grandad, if you get bitten by a snake, will you come home with only one leg? And I thought to myself, well, I'll be travelling lighter on Singapore Airlines, and perhaps they could give me a 20% discount or something. Just, I love the imagination of these children. And his brother said, taking the train from London through to Paris and Belgium to go to the teacher retreats in Germany. And he said, but what about the water? And I said, no, we go under there. And my grandson said to me, oh, but he said, if you're on the train there, he said, will you see the fish? The thought arose in my mind, if we do, shit, we're in real trouble. Well, I love the imagination. And one little child lost his grandmother, and he asked his mum, what happened to Granny when she died? And sometimes the mother, I don't know, but she had a wonderful life. She was a lovely granny, and she passed on. And the little child said, I saw a bird flying straight up, and the bird was carrying Granny to heaven. I mean, it's such an imagination, it's poetically beautiful. And sometimes the youngsters, they remind us of something really precious and deep about the imagination. It doesn't have to be true, it's just the beauty of the statements which really can touch us. And we need those moments from the young. We need those moments from the nature, because all of those moments will remind us of the price we pay for living in this world of busyness and giving so much authority, and the stress and the anxiety and the traumas and the addictions. And just with the trauma, like my daughter used it, she said, God, she said, Daddy, it was traumatic being in this church hall. No, it wasn't. But you get the idea. So sometimes with trauma, to look at in its actual sense, one could be a very painful experience of the past. The body, so to speak, has remembered, it's singular, a short number of them, and it's still having some influence in the present and affecting us in the present. It requires some work with all of that, and sometimes it requires some sharing, if it's strong, of course, with the other, always with the view, what will change it? What's a fresh way of looking at it? And we ask, what is the fresh way? What is the new way? What is the creative way? So they're not repeating the memory. And keep working on it, keep working, day in and day out. So there's no self-blame, no self-pity, no blame of the other. What is the fresh way? Dig, 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 and something will emerge, and you will know the truth of it, and the truth of it is only confirmed because it changes the way of looking at it, and you feel much lighter. It's not what's actually said, it's the authority which emerges from it. It emerges out, and you know a change has been made because you feel and think differently. And sometimes Dharma is not in the dramatic of the singular, but in the regularity of something which keeps repeating itself. And there's a feeling of not recovering from. That recognition of that is the same principle, to really recognize, be clearly honest, if necessary, share with the other, because sometimes it's too much for the individual to handle, and then to see from that same kind of principle. Keep working with it for the new, for the liberating, for the insightful. So you don't have to go into the psychology, you don't have to go into all the history of all of that. It might be true, everything you remember may be completely accurate, but it may not make a scrap of difference. Psychology may not resolve it just by analysing what was, but we want to be recognised, we're in no denial, and given the opportunity through the depth to find something to expand out. And it might just be a new, fresh way to be explored. If you do start exploring a fresh way with a trauma, whatever it is, initially it will seem very theoretical. It won't seem real, because the real has been planted into the trauma. And that's the projection is into the trauma as the real thing, the real experience, the real relationship. So if you do something which was trauma, but now you're responding in a fresh way, it won't seem very authentic. Oh, it's just my mind, it's just my head, it's just my thoughts, it's just an idea. Be patient. Be patient, so that from that just an idea, with the practice, it will just gradually deepen into feeling. It will deepen into experience. It will gain its valid authenticity. And when it does, the days of trauma are finished. They're over. They're gone. You're out. Liberation for it. So, blimey. I should take the watch off the wrist in the future and put it down, etc. So, finally, there's working with the breath, 1. 2, working with the body. And there's sometimes presence of the whole body or experiences of the body, 2. Thirdly, listening deeply. So one aspect of the listening deeply is to the feeling. If you're not sure what the feeling is in the way that we described to you, don't try and have any kind of decision about it. Just be with what the experience actually is. Don't be concerned, pleasant, unpleasant, or in between there. And today, a little bit more, 2 aspects to today. The full experience of the whole presence of heart and mind. So, times being with the breath, if that's appropriate for you. Times being with the whole body, if that's appropriate for you. Times really tuning into the feeling life, there to really recognize its place in human existence. And then fourthly, just expanding out a little bit further. Right now, what's the state of mind, heart and mind? Right now, what's the quality of presence? Right now, what's the energy? And the encouragement as well, for some reflection here. It might be around one of those 5 I mentioned today. What is the change that's going to make a radical difference? Enough. Thank you for lending it ear. Thank you. Let's have a quiet minute, shall we? May all beings explore the expanse of the human experience. May all beings go deeply into the field of life. May all beings live with wisdom and liberation. Thank you for lending an ear. So some time for those who wish for some sitting or walking, and time as well for some one-to-ones. Thank you. Enjoy the day.